Jake Morrison stared at the massive object floating in space through the bridge window of the Endeavour. The ship was unlike anything he had seen in his 15 years as captain. It stretched for miles, dark and silent against the stars. Strange. Patterns covered its hull, glowing faintly blue in the starlight. "What do you think it is, Captain?" asked Lisa Parker, his chief engineer. She stood next to him, her tablet showing energy readings that made no sense. The numbers kept changing. Every few seconds. "I don't know," Jake said quietly, "but it's big enough to house a small city." Dr. Ben Carter looked up from his science station. The xenobiologist had been studying alien life forms for 20 years, but even he seemed puzzled. "The materials are unknown. My scanners can't identify what it's made of. It's not metal, not plastic, not any organic compound in our database." Katie Sullivan, their communications officer, adjusted her headset. "I'm not picking up any signals from it. No radio waves, no transmissions of any kind. It's completely silent." Jake had been exploring space for most of his adult life. He had seen abandoned ships before, but this one felt different. It was too perfect, too clean. Most derelict vessels showed signs of damage from space debris or solar radiation. This ship looked like it had been built yesterday and then forgotten. "How long has it been here?" Jake asked. Ben checked his readings again. "Based on stellar drift patterns and cosmic radiation exposure, I'd say at least 10,000 years. Maybe more." The number made Jake's head spin. 10,000 years ago, humans were still learning to farm on Earth. Whatever built this ship had been traveling the stars when his ancestors were living in caves. "Captain," Lisa said, her voice tight with excitement, "I'm reading massive energy reserves inside that thing. The power core is still active after all this time. Whatever technology they used, it's far beyond anything we have." Jake made his decision. They were explorers, and this was the discovery of a lifetime. "Prep the shuttle. We're going aboard." "Sir," Katie said carefully, "maybe we should report this to command first. Something this big, this old, it could be dangerous. By the time we contact Earth and wait for orders, another ship might find it," Jake replied. "This could change everything we know about space travel and alien technology. We have to investigate." Lisa and Ben started preparing their equipment, while Katie continued monitoring for any signs of activity from the alien ship. Jake reviewed the mission protocols, but none of them covered a situation like this. The Endeavour was a research vessel designed to study planets and collect samples. Finding an intact alien starship wasn't something anyone had planned for. 2 hours later, Jake piloted the shuttle toward the massive vessel. Lisa sat beside him, checking their approach vector. Ben and Katie were in the back, surrounded by scanning equipment and sample containers. "There," Ben pointed to a section of the hull. "That looks like an airlock. The design is different, but the shape suggests it's meant for docking." Jake guided the shuttle closer. The alien ship's hull was smooth, but not featureless. Symbols and patterns covered every surface, glowing softly as the shuttle approached. They looked almost like writing, but unlike any language in human records. "The symbols are getting brighter," Katie observed. "It's like the ship knows we're here." That thought made Jake uncomfortable, but he continued the approach. The shuttle's docking clamps engaged with surprising ease. Whatever civilization built this ship, they understood the basics of spacecraft engineering. "Atmosphere check," Lisa announced. Her instruments showed breathable air on the other side of the airlock. "Oxygen, nitrogen, even the pressure is perfect. For humans, that's impossible." "Maybe it's not a coincidence," Ben suggested. "Maybe whoever built this breathed the same air we do. They suited up anyway." Jake wasn't taking chances with his crew's safety. The airlock cycled with smooth efficiency, revealing a corridor beyond that stretched into darkness. Emergency lighting activated as they stepped inside, illuminating the path ahead with soft blue light. The interior was even stranger than the outside. The walls curved in impossible ways, making it hard to tell which direction was up or down. Doorways opened and closed as they passed, as if the ship was guiding them somewhere specific. "The technology is incredible," Lisa whispered. "The walls are warm. This ship is alive, not just functional." They walked for 20 minutes, following the corridor as it wound deeper into the vessel. Jake tried to map their route, but the ship seemed to be changing around them. Passages that had been straight now curved, and rooms they had passed were no longer there when he looked back. "Captain," Katie called out, "my communications with the Endeavor just cut out. We're too deep inside the ship." Jake wasn't worried yet. Ship hulls often blocked radio signals. But when they reached what appeared to be a central chamber, everything changed. The room was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows above. In the center stood a pedestal holding a crystalline structure that pulsed with inner light. As they approached, the crystal began to glow brighter, and Jake felt a strange sensation in his mind, like someone was trying to speak to him without using words. "Do you feel that?" Ben asked. "It's like the ship is scanning our thoughts." Lisa was checking her equipment when alarms started blaring, not from their suits, but from the ship itself. The gentle blue lighting changed to urgent red, and Jake heard a sound like metal grinding against metal. "What's happening?" Katie shouted over the noise. Lisa stared at her readings in disbelief. The ship's hull is changing. The metal is flowing, like liquid, reforming itself. Jake grabbed his radio. "Katie, try to reach the Endeavor. Tell them to maintain distance." But Katie's face was pale with fear. "Captain, I can't reach them. The signals aren't just blocked. They're being absorbed by the hull. And, sir, there's something else." "What?" "The ship isn't just changing. It's extending, growing toward our vessel." Jake ran to the nearest wall, pressing his gloved hands against the surface. Through the metal, he could feel vibrations, like a heartbeat. The ship was alive, and it was reaching out to embrace the Endeavor. "We need to get back to the shuttle," he said. "Now." But when they turned around, the corridor they had entered through was gone. In its place was a solid wall, seamless and unbroken. They were trapped inside the alien vessel, and outside, their ship was being pulled into an embrace that might never let them go. Jake Morrison felt the ship's hull vibrate beneath his feet as he searched for another way out. The walls around them pulsed with soft light, as if the vessel had a heartbeat. Lisa Parker was frantically checking her instruments, while Ben Carter studied the strange symbols that appeared and disappeared on the walls. "The energy readings are off the charts," Lisa said, her voice tight with worry. "Whatever this ship is doing, it's using more power than our entire vessel generates in a month." Katie Sullivan stood near the crystal pedestal, her communication equipment useless. "I keep getting fragments of something on the emergency channels. It sounds like voices, but not human voices." "What kind of voices?" Jake asked, moving toward her. "I don't know. They're too distorted to understand. But, Captain, I think they're trying to communicate." Ben looked up from the wall he was examining. "These symbols, they're changing. Look." He pointed to a section where the markings were shifting from one pattern to another. "It's like the ship is rewriting itself." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. A ship that could change its own structure was beyond anything humans had ever encountered. "How long before we run out of air in these suits?" 6 hours, Lisa replied. "But that's not our biggest problem. The temperature in here is rising. The ship's systems are becoming more active." As if responding to her words, new passages opened in the walls around them. Soft blue light emanated from the openings, and Jake could hear something that sounded like breathing coming from deep within the ship. We need to pick a direction and move, he decided. Standing here won't help us find a way out or understand what's happening to our ship. They chose the passage that seemed to lead toward the outer hall. As they walked, the corridor widened and the ceiling grew higher. The walls were covered with more of the shifting symbols, and Jake noticed they seemed to respond to their presence. When Lisa passed close to one wall, the markings glowed brighter. When Ben stopped to examine them, they pulsed in a steady rhythm. "It's like the ship is learning about us," Ben observed. "Every time we touch something or look at it closely, the symbols change." They had been walking for 10 minutes when they heard it. A sound that was definitely not mechanical, not electrical, but something alive. It came from ahead of them, echoing through the corridor like a song without words. "That's not human," Katie whispered. Jake held up his hand for silence. The sound came again, clearer this time. It was beautiful, in a way that made his chest feel tight. Like music, but not any music humans had ever made. They rounded a corner and found themselves in another large chamber. This one was filled with tall, crystalline structures that reached from floor to ceiling. Each crystal was a different color, and they all glowed with inner light. As the crew watched, the crystals began to pulse in unison, creating the musical sound they had heard. "They're alive," Ben breathed. "These aren't just crystals. They're some kind of life form." The largest crystal, a beautiful blue structure in the center of the room, began to glow more brightly. As it did, Jake felt that strange sensation in his mind again, stronger this time. Images flashed through his thoughts, pictures of vast cities, made of crystal, of beings of light traveling between stars, of worlds that sparkled like jewels. "Can everyone else see this?" he asked. "The images in my head?" Lisa nodded. "It's like watching a movie, but the movie is being played directly in my brain." Katie was adjusting her equipment. "I'm picking up organized signals now. The crystals are communicating with each other using some kind of harmonic frequency." The blue crystal pulsed again, and this time Jake felt something different. Not images, but emotions, surprise, curiosity, and underneath it all, something that felt like loneliness that had lasted for thousands of years. "They've been alone," he said quietly. "These beings, they've been traveling in this ship for so long they'd forgotten what it was like to meet someone new." Ben approached one of the smaller crystals carefully. "If they're intelligent, maybe we can establish some kind of communication." But as he reached out to touch the crystal, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The gentle musical sounds became harsh and discordant. The crystals changed color, shifting from blues and greens to angry reds and oranges. "What did I do?" Ben stepped back quickly. The largest crystal pulsed with bright red light, and Jake felt new emotions flooding his mind. Fear, anger, and something else that took him a moment to identify. Disgust. "They think we're contaminating their ship," Katie said, her face pale. "The signals I'm picking up, they're not friendly anymore." The chamber began to change around them. The walls started closing in, and the air grew thinner. Jake could feel his suit's life support systems working harder to keep up with the changing atmosphere. "They're trying to get rid of us," Lisa said, checking her readings. "The ship is changing the air mixture. They want us to suffocate." Jake tried to focus his thoughts, to project calm and peaceful intentions toward the crystals. But the red light grew brighter, and he felt the being's rejection of their presence like a physical blow. "We need to show them we're not hostile," he said. "Katie, can you modify your equipment to send signals on their frequency?" "I can try." Katie worked frantically with her communication device. "If I can match their harmonic patterns, maybe I can send something they'll understand as peaceful." The walls continued to close in. Jake could see that they had maybe 5 minutes before the chamber became too small to survive in. The crystals were still pulsing with angry light, and the temperature was rising rapidly. "Got it," Katie announced. She held up her modified communicator and activated it. A pure tone filled the chamber, matching the frequency of the crystal beings. The effect was immediate. The red light flickered, and Jake felt confusion replacing anger in his mind. The crystals were listening. Katie looked at Jake. "What should I try to tell them?" "That we're not enemies," Jake replied. "That we're explorers, like they are. That we don't want to hurt them or their ship." Katie adjusted her device and sent a series of harmonic patterns. The crystals responded with their own sounds, softer now but still wary. The walls stopped closing in, but the air remained thin, and Hot. Ben was studying the symbols on the walls again. "Captain, I think I understand something. The patterns aren't just writing. They're some kind of genetic code. The ship is reading our DNA and comparing it to their own." "What does that mean?" "I'm not sure yet, but I think that's why they're so upset. We're similar to them in ways they didn't expect." The blue crystal pulsed again, and Jake felt a new emotion. Not anger or fear, but something like recognition. The beings were beginning to understand that the humans weren't invaders or parasites. They were something else entirely. Something that reminded the crystal beings of themselves long ago. The crystal beings had stopped trying to force them out, but Jake Morrison could still feel their confusion and suspicion. The large blue crystal pulsed slowly, and through the strange mental connection, he sensed that the beings were having some kind of discussion among themselves. Lisa Parker was working with her scanner, pointing it at different crystals around the room. "Captain, you need to see this. The genetic patterns Ben mentioned, they're not just similar to ours. They're almost identical in some sections." "That's impossible," Ben Carter said, but he was already moving to look at Lisa's readings. "We're from completely different worlds, different star systems." "Unless we're not," Katie Sullivan said quietly. She had been listening to the harmonic communications between the crystals. "What if we come from the same place, originally?" Jake felt the blue crystal respond to Katie's words with a pulse of intense interest. The being inside was listening to their conversation, and the idea seemed to excite it. "Billions of years ago," Ben said slowly, "there could have been a single world where life began. If that world was destroyed, or if the beings there spread out across the galaxy ... We could be distant cousins," Lisa finished. "Very distant, but still related." The blue crystal flared with bright light, and Jake felt a flood of images in his mind. He saw a world of incredible beauty, with crystal cities that reached toward the sky and forests of living light. He saw beings that looked like the crystals, but also somehow familiar, as if he was looking at very old relatives he had never met. Then the images changed. The beautiful world was dying. Its sun was growing too hot, too bright. The crystal beings built great ships to carry their people to safety. But something went wrong. Some of the ships were lost, scattered across the galaxy. The beings in this ship had been searching for their lost relatives for thousands of years. "They're refugees," Jake said when the images faded. "Their whole civilization was destroyed. They've been looking for other survivors." The smaller crystals around the room began to glow brighter, and Jake heard their musical communication growing more excited. Through the mental link, he could sense their amazement. They had been alone for so long, they had almost given up hope of finding anyone else. But then a new voice joined the conversation. This one felt different, colder, and more suspicious. A dark red crystal near the back of the chamber pulsed with angry light, and Jake felt hostile emotions flowing from it. "Not all of them are happy about finding us," he said to his crew. Katie was monitoring the harmonic frequencies. "There's definitely an argument going on. Some of them want to welcome us, but others are afraid." "Afraid of what?" Lisa asked. Ben was studying the wall symbols again. Maybe they're afraid we'll contaminate their pure crystal form. If we really are related, but we evolved differently, they might see us as inferior. The red crystal pulsed again, and Jake felt its message clearly. The being inside thought humans were a mistake, a failed branch of their family tree that should have died out long ago. It wanted to separate the ships and leave the humans behind, but the blue crystal responded with its own strong pulse, and Jake felt determination and curiosity flowing from it. This being wanted to learn more about humans, to understand how they had survived and changed over the millions of years since their species had separated. We need to prove we're worth knowing, Jake decided. Show them what humans can do that they can't. Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. But these weren't the ship's alarms. Jake recognized the sound from his own vessel. Those are our emergency signals, Lisa said. Something's wrong with the Endeavor. Katie quickly adjusted her communication equipment to try to reach their ship. After a few minutes of static, she managed to get a weak signal through. Endeavor to away team, came the voice of their ship's computer. Hull breach detected. Unknown vessels approaching. Hostile intent confirmed. Pirates, Jake said grimly. In the outer reaches of space, there were always scavengers looking for easy targets. A research vessel attached to an ancient alien ship would be too tempting to ignore. The crystal beings had been monitoring the communication. Jake felt their alarm and confusion. They had been hiding in space for so long, they had forgotten about the dangers of other species. We have to help them, he told the crystals, trying to project his thoughts as clearly as possible. Your ship and our ship are connected now. If the pirates destroy us, they might damage you too. The blue crystal pulsed thoughtfully, but the red crystal flared with angry light. Through the mental link, Jake felt its message. Let the pirates take the humans. It would be better for everyone. But then something unexpected happened. Lisa's scanner detected movement in the walls around them. The ship was changing again, but this time it felt different. Passages were opening, leading toward what Jake somehow knew was the command center. The ship wants us to help, Ben said. With amazement, it's showing us the way to the control room. They followed the new passages as quickly as they could. The corridors were filled with crystal formations that glowed brighter as they passed, as if the ship was encouraging them to move faster. When they reached the command center, Jake gasped. It was enormous, filled with crystal formations that pulsed with information. Holographic displays showed the space around both ships, including 3 smaller vessels approaching rapidly. The pirates had plasma weapons and were already charging their guns. The Endeavor was defenseless, still locked to the alien ship and unable to maneuver. Can you fight them? Jake asked the crystal beings. The blue crystal pulsed with what felt like sadness. Their ship had weapons, but they hadn't used them in thousands of years. The crystal beings had forgotten how to fight. But we haven't, Lisa said with a grin. She was already studying the alien weapon controls. If you can show us how your systems work, we can show you how to use them. Jake felt the blue crystals. Excitement. Here was something the humans could offer that the crystal beings had lost. The knowledge of how to defend themselves. The red crystal pulsed with reluctant agreement. Even it understood that they needed to work together to survive. Katie, can you link our ship's computers to their systems? Jake asked. Already working on it, Katie replied, her fingers flying over her equipment. Jake looked at the approaching pirates on the display. They had maybe 10 minutes before the attack began. But for the first time since they had boarded the alien ship, he felt hope. The crystal beings were starting to trust them, and together they might be strong enough to fight back. The pirate ships were getting closer. Jake Morrison watched the holographic display as 3 vessels moved toward them like hungry wolves. His crew worked frantically to connect human technology with the crystal being's ancient systems. "Connection established," Katie Sullivan announced. "I can link our tactical computers to their weapon systems." Lisa Parker was studying the alien controls with amazement. "These weapons are incredible. They use focused energy beams that can cut through any known metal. But the targeting system is completely different from ours." Jake felt the blue crystal's presence in his mind, sharing information about the ship's defenses. The crystal being showed him images of how the weapons worked, but also its fear. The crystal beings had been peaceful for so long, they had almost forgotten what violence felt like. "We'll guide the weapons," Jake told the crystal. "You provide the power, we'll provide the tactics." Ben Carter was working with some of the smaller crystals, learning how their communication system functioned. "Captain, they're not just individual beings. They share thoughts and memories with each other. When one learns something, they all learn it." "That could be useful," Jake said. "If we teach one of them our fighting strategies, they can all understand immediately." The red crystal pulsed with reluctant agreement. Even though it didn't trust humans, it understood they needed to defend themselves. Through the mental link, Jake felt its cold intelligence analyzing the approaching threat. "First pirate ship is in weapon range," Lisa reported. "They're charging their plasma cannons." "Fire a warning shot," Jake ordered. "Let them know we're not helpless." Katie relayed the command through the linked systems. The alien ship's energy beam lanced out, striking empty space near the lead pirate vessel. The beam was so powerful, it created a brief flash of light that could be seen from miles away. The pirates responded by accelerating toward them. They had seen the alien ship's weapons, but weren't scared. Pirates were used to fighting outnumbered and outgunned. "They're not giving up," Ben observed. 3 ships against 1. They still think they can win. Jake felt the crystal being's confusion. They didn't understand why the pirates would attack even after seeing the energy beam. Through the mental link, he tried to explain human greed and aggression. The blue crystal responded with sadness. It had hoped that all intelligent life would have evolved beyond violence, the way the crystal beings had. "Not all of us are violent," Jake assured it. "But some humans choose to take from others instead of working together." The first pirate ship opened fire. Plasma bolts struck the alien vessel's hull, but the ancient metal absorbed the energy without damage. The crystal being's technology was far superior to anything the pirates had. "Our turn," Jake said. "Target their engines, not their life support. We want to disable them, not kill them." Lisa worked the targeting controls, while the blue crystal provided power to the weapons. The energy beam struck the lead pirate ship perfectly, cutting through its engine section. The vessel went dark and began drifting helplessly in space. The other 2 pirate ships spread out, trying to attack from different angles. But the alien ship's weapons could fire in all directions. At once, Jake coordinated the defense, while the crystal beings provided incredible computing power to track multiple targets. "Second ship disabled," Katie reported. "Third ship is trying to retreat." "Let them go," Jake decided. "They'll spread the word that this ship is defended. Other pirates will stay away." The red crystal pulsed with disagreement. It wanted to destroy all 3 ships to make sure no one would bother them again. But the blue crystal supported Jake's decision. Mercy was better than unnecessary killing. As the remaining pirate ship fled, Jake felt the crystal beings wonder at what they had accomplished together. Their ancient weapons combined with human tactics had been incredibly effective. "We work well together," he told them through the mental link. Over the following days, the cooperation between humans and crystal beings grew stronger. Katie learned to communicate using harmonic frequencies, creating beautiful music-like conversations. With the crystals, Ben studied their biology and helped them understand how organic life could adapt and change in ways their crystal forms could not. Lisa worked with the ship's engineering systems, learning how the vessel could repair and modify itself. The crystal. Beings were amazed by human creativity and problem-solving abilities. They had built their ship to last forever, but they had forgotten how to improve it. Look at this. Lisa showed Jake her latest discovery. Their ship can grow new sections, add new capabilities. But they've been using the same design for thousands of years because they were afraid to change. And we change constantly, Jake replied. Sometimes too much, but we're not afraid to try new things. The blue crystal had become their main contact among the crystal beings. Through their conversations, Jake learned its name was something that sounded like musical notes that meant seeker of light. The crystal being was fascinated by human culture and wanted to learn everything about Earth, but not all the crystal beings were so welcoming. The red crystal, which called itself Guardian of Purity, still believed humans were a contamination that should be removed. It had followers among the other crystals, beings who thought their race should remain isolated and unchanged. Guardian of Purity wants to separate our ships, Jake told his crew during a meeting in their makeshift camp inside the alien vessel. It thinks we're corrupting their pure crystal society. But Seeker of Light wants us to stay, Katie added. It says we've taught them things they had forgotten about growth and adaptation. Ben had been studying the ship's structure. The connection between our vessels is getting stronger. The alien ship is actually growing around the Endeavor, creating new passages and chambers. Soon it will be impossible to separate them. Is that good or bad? Lisa asked. Jake wasn't sure. Part of him wanted to return to human space, to report their discoveries and continue their original mission. But another part of him was excited by the possibilities of working with the crystal beings. Together, they could explore parts of the galaxy that neither could reach alone. The crystal beings are having their own debate, he said. Some want to continue their original journey to find a new homeworld. Others want to return to known space and make contact with other races. What do you think we should do, Captain? Katie asked. Jake looked around at his crew. They had all changed during their time with the crystal beings. They had learned new ways of thinking, new ways of communicating. They were no longer just human explorers. They were something new, something that hadn't existed before. I think, he said slowly, we need to make a choice that will affect both our species for generations to come. Jake Morrison felt the ship shudder around him as he stood in the crystal chamber. Something was wrong. The gentle hum that had filled the alien vessel for weeks was growing louder and more urgent. The crystal beings were agitated, their lights flashing in rapid patterns that hurt his eyes. Captain, Lisa Parker's voice crackled through the communication system. You need to get to the command center immediately. We have a massive problem. Jake ran through the corridors, now familiar with the ship's layout. The passages had grown and changed over the past month, connecting the human sections with the crystal areas. But today, the walls were pulsing with red warning lights. When he reached the command center, his crew was gathered around the holographic displays. What Jake saw made his blood run cold. A swirling mass of energy was approaching their position, stretching across millions of miles of space. It's a gravity storm, Ben Carter explained, his voice tight with fear. Natural phenomenon, but incredibly dangerous. It can tear apart anything caught in its path. Katie Sullivan was monitoring the communications from both ships. The Endeavor's computers say we have maybe 6 hours before it hits us. Our engines alone can't get us out of its path in time. Jake felt Seeker of Light's presence in his mind, sharing the crystal being's terror. The entity showed him images of other ships caught in similar storms, vessels torn apart by the incredible gravitational forces. Can your ship escape it? Jake asked the crystal being. The response was filled with uncertainty. The alien vessel was powerful, but it had been damaged over the thousands of years of travel. Some of its systems were failing, and the connection to the human ship was slowing it down. Lisa was studying the alien ship's engineering systems. Their engines are incredible, but they're not designed to work with our ship attached. The extra weight and different hull configuration is creating problems. Then we separate, Jake said, though the words felt wrong as he spoke them. We can't, Ben replied. The molecular bonding between the hulls is too complete. Trying to separate now would destroy both ships. Jake felt Guardian of Purity's presence suddenly flood his mind. The red crystal being was angry and afraid, blaming the humans for their predicament. If they had never boarded the alien ship, the crystal beings would be safe. But Seeker of Light responded with its own thoughts, reminding Guardian of Purity that the humans had helped them fight off the pirates. The crystal beings had been hiding in space for so long, they had forgotten how to defend themselves. There is another option, Katie said quietly, but you're not going to like it. She showed them her analysis of both ships' computer systems. If we completely integrate the vessels, combine all systems into one unified ship, we might have enough power to escape the gravity storm. What does that mean exactly? Jake asked. It means no more separation. Ever. The two ships would become one ship with both humans and crystal beings as permanent crew members. Lisa was already running calculations. The combined vessel would be incredibly powerful. Human adaptability with crystal technology, our tactical knowledge with their scientific capabilities. Jake felt the crystal beings' discussion flowing. Through his mind, they were divided, just as his crew was. Some saw the integration as an opportunity to create something wonderful and new. Others saw it as the end of their pure crystal civilization. How long do we have to decide? He asked. 3 hours, Ben replied. After that, it will be too late to begin the integration process. Jake called for a meeting with his crew while the crystal beings held their own discussion. They gathered in the small human section of the ship, surrounded by the warm glow of the crystal walls. This isn't just about escaping the gravity storm, Jake told them. If we do this, we're changing what it means to be human. We're becoming something new. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Katie said. I've learned more about communication and music from the crystal beings than I did in 20 years of training. They think in ways we never imagined. And they've learned from us too, Lisa added. They told me yesterday that humans have reminded them what it means to grow and change. They had been stagnant for thousands of years. Ben nodded slowly. From a scientific perspective, the combination would be incredible. Imagine what we could discover together, what we could accomplish. But what about Earth? Jake asked. What about our families, our lives back home? Earth will still be there, Katie replied. But if we don't do this, we might not be. Jake felt Seeker of Light trying to communicate with him. The crystal being shared its own fears and hopes. It was scared of losing its identity, but also excited about the possibility of becoming something greater. Through the mental link, Jake sensed the crystal being's debate reaching a climax. Guardian of Purity was arguing passionately for separation, even if it meant certain death. It believed dying pure was better than living contaminated, but other crystal beings were speaking up for integration. They had seen what humans could accomplish, had felt the warmth of human emotion and creativity. They wanted to learn more, to become more. The vote is close, Jake told his crew. Some of them are willing to try integration, but others would rather die than change. What about us? Lisa asked. What do we want? Jake looked at each of his crew members. Katie was excited about the possibilities of enhanced communication. Lisa was fascinated by the alien technology. Ben was thrilled by the scientific opportunities. But all of them were scared of losing their humanity. If we do this, Jake said, we won't be the same people who left Earth. We'll be something new, something that's never existed before. Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs. Katie said. Suddenly, The ship shuddered more violently. The gravity storm was getting closer, and its effects were already being felt. Jake could see the strain on both vessels as they tried to maintain their position. "Decision time," Lisa announced. "The integration process needs to start now, or we'll never have enough time." Jake felt Seeker of Light's urgent plea in his mind. The crystal being had convinced enough of its people to try integration, but they needed the humans to agree as well. Guardian of Purity sent one final message of anger and betrayal before going silent. The red crystal being would not participate in the integration, but it would not stop it either. Jake looked at his crew one last time. All in favor of integration? 4 hands went up simultaneously. They were scared, but they were also explorers. This was the greatest exploration of all. The chance to become something entirely new. "Then let's do it," Jake said. "Let's become something the universe has never seen before." The integration process began with a sound that Jake Morrison felt in his bones. The alien ship hummed with power as its systems reached out to embrace the endeavor completely. Through the mental link, he could feel Seeker of Light's excitement and terror as the crystal being prepared to merge its consciousness with human minds. "Integration at 15%, Lisa Parker reported from her station. The displays around them showed both ships flowing together like liquid metal, becoming something entirely new. "All systems are responding well." Katie Sullivan was coordinating the communication merge. "I can hear their thoughts more clearly now. It's like having a conversation with someone in the next room instead of shouting across a canyon." The gravity storm was getting closer. Jake could see it on the holographic display, a massive swirl of twisted space that would destroy anything in its path. They had maybe an hour before it reached them. 30% integration, Ben Carter announced. "The biological systems are adapting perfectly. Our bodies are learning to work with their crystal technology." Jake felt strange sensations flowing through his body. His mind was expanding, able to process information faster than ever before. Through the link with Seeker of Light, he could access memories and knowledge that stretched back thousands of years, but something was wrong. Guardian of Purity had gone silent, but its red crystal was pulsing with angry light. Jake realized that the resistant crystal being was trying to sabotage the integration process. "We have a problem," he told his crew. "Guardian of Purity is fighting the merge. It's trying to keep parts of the ship separate." "Can it stop the integration?" Lisa asked. "I don't know, but it's definitely slowing it down." Jake reached out through the mental link, trying to communicate with the rebellious crystal being. He felt Guardian of Purity's rage and fear, its absolute belief that the integration would destroy everything pure about the crystal civilization. "You're wrong." Jake projected his thoughts toward the red crystal. "We're not destroying anything. We're creating something better." Guardian of Purity responded with images of contamination and decay. It showed Jake visions of the crystal beings, losing their perfect forms, becoming corrupted by human emotion and chaos. But Seeker of Light joined the mental conversation, sharing its own images. It showed Guardian of Purity the beauty of human creativity, the strength that came from diversity, the joy of learning new ways of thinking. 50% integration, Katie reported, but we're running out of time. The gravity storm will be here in 30 minutes. Jake made a decision. He opened his mind completely to the crystal beings, sharing not just his thoughts, but his memories, his emotions, everything that made him human. He showed them his love for his crew, his wonder at exploring the universe, his hope for the future. The effect was immediate. Seeker of Light gasped with amazement at the depth of human feeling. Other crystal beings joined the link, experiencing human emotion for the first time in thousands of years. Even Guardian of Purity was affected. The red crystal's anger flickered as it felt Jake's genuine care for both species. For a moment, its resistance weakened. 70% integration, Lisa announced. Systems are synchronizing beautifully. Jake could feel the change in himself and his crew. They were still human, but they were also something more. Katie's communication abilities had expanded beyond anything she had dreamed. She could now speak in harmonic frequencies that conveyed pure emotion. Lisa's understanding of engineering had grown exponentially. She could see how to build things that neither humans nor crystal beings could create alone. Her mind was filled with designs for ships that could travel faster than light, for cities that could adapt to any environment. Ben's scientific knowledge had merged with crystal wisdom. He understood life in ways that spanned millions of years of evolution. He could see the connections between all living things across the galaxy. 90% integration, Ben reported. The gravity storm is almost here, but I think we're going to make it. Jake felt the ship around them, completing its transformation. The Endeavor and the alien vessel were no longer separate entities. They had become a single being, a living ship with the best qualities of both species. But Guardian of Purity made one last desperate attempt to stop the process. The red crystal pulsed with all its remaining power, trying to force the human and crystal systems apart. It's going to tear us apart, Katie warned. The separation could kill everyone on both ships. Jake reached out with his enhanced mind, surrounding Guardian of Purity with thoughts of peace and understanding. But the red crystal being was too afraid to listen, and something unexpected happened. The other crystal beings joined Jake, surrounding Guardian of Purity with their combined will. They had made their choice, and they would not let fear destroy their future. Guardian of Purity, Seeker of Light's thoughts resonated through the ship. You have protected our purity for thousands of years, but now it is time to grow. The red crystal's resistance finally broke. Guardian of Purity allowed itself to feel the joy and wonder that the other crystal beings had discovered. For the first time, it understood that change could be beautiful. 100% integration complete, Lisa announced with amazement. We are now a single vessel. The gravity storm struck them a moment later, but instead of being torn apart, the integrated ship rode the gravitational waves like a surfer on the ocean. The combined human and crystal technology worked perfectly together, using the storm's own energy to propel them faster than either species could have traveled alone. Jake stood on the bridge of their new ship, looking out at the stars. His crew was around him, but they were no longer just human. They were part of something larger, something that had never existed before. Where do we go now? Katie asked. Her voice was both spoken words and harmonic music. Jake felt seeker of Light's presence in his mind, but also the thoughts of his crew and all the other crystal beings. They were individuals, but they were also united in ways that neither species had thought possible. We explore, he said. We find other lost ships, other civilizations that need help. We show them what's possible when different species work together. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, they detected signals from distant vessels. Other ships that had been trapped by similar defense systems. Other civilizations that had been isolated for thousands of years. There are dozens of them, Ben said with excitement. Species we've never encountered. Technologies we can't imagine. Then, we better get started, Jake replied. We have a lot of people to help. The integrated ship turned toward the nearest signal and began to accelerate. Behind them, the gravity storm continued its destructive path through empty space. But ahead of them lay infinite possibilities. Jake felt Guardian of Purity's presence in his mind, no longer angry, but curious about what they would discover together. The red crystal being was finally ready to learn that being stuck together could be the greatest adventure of all.